you would have sat there and done that for 20 minutes.
Me?
Yeah.
If that's what it took.
I've
That's
been
what it
doing
took
that
for you
since
to be
3
doing.
o'clock this afternoon.
Ooh, what happened at 2 o'clock?
Nothing. I was just trying to get into a groove.
Oh,
I knew
see.
this was coming, and so I just needed to jazz it up.
That makes sense. Hey, this window won't turn off. Like, I don't know what to do.
This window won't
Means-
turn off.
No, it's like
I mean, it's fine.
wrecking the vibe in here. It's so.
Oh, you just hate like revealing that you live
Was it-
in like the above world.
Was it
Yeah,
darker?
exactly.
I feel like it was darker in there a minute ago before we started recording.
No,
Okay.
it was not.
I also
But
have
I
windows
do
open.
feel like
I'll just let you know you're wrong. I'll just quickly throw that out
Hey,
there. That's fine.
Andrew does look like he's in the dark.
in comparison.
Yeah,
Yeah, you do.
you have. The
I
most
mean,
darkness.
whatever, doesn't matter. Hello, people that are here.
In my heart.
Impromptu. I know we haven't started the episode yet, but I meant to ask this beforehand, so I'm asking it now. There'll be spoilers. I think we can just do
Yeah.
spoilers the entire time, whatever.
We have to. Why are we doing this if we're not doing spoilers?
But
Let's only talk about the first 2 episodes.
We would be talking for 5 minutes and then like we would be done. There was no point in
I
time.
know. But I guess, like, are we allowed to bring other people's theories, or can we only bring our own theories?
Bring
As long as
whatever
you say
want.
like, I heard this theory, I think that's fair. Don't take credit
No,
for it.
you
if
need
it
to.
wasn't
No,
a theory.
you need to take credit for it. 100%.
I'm taking credit. I'm taking credit for
Take
whoever's
credit for
idea
your
I
own
want.
theories.
I'm taking credit for whoever idea I want.
Okay. Last thing, because I'm gonna say this, and if Mackenzie doesn't stop me, I hope she's not listening. Then it's gonna happen.
Okay.
Because I'm wearing my Creative South shirt, and I just remembered it. You should come with me to my barber, and you should be the model, and I'll get her to do my hair exactly like whatever your hair is.
Done. Including
Bald?
mustache.
Every bit of it.
Including mustache. Yes.
I include everything. Legs,
Yep. Chest.
chest.
the undergrunds.
This is a full body barber.
Yes.
Her name is actually Full Body Barbara.
Full body
Full body-
Barbara.
Full Body Barbara.
Yeah. Who happens to be a barber. Maybe that's why she got it.
Certainly a
Your
drag queen
dentist's
name.
name is Crentist.
I think here's the thing. I hear what Mackenzie's saying, but I think that if she just let it happen, it might surprise her.
I think what you need to have happen, or what needs to happen, is Becca should text her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Becca, text Mackenzie about your experience.
Not that that Mackenzie isn't capable of making her own decisions, and not
Sure.
that Becca isn't capable of having her own thoughts and feelings. But Becca,
Yeah.
I think, felt the same way until it happened, and now
I
she's
just
like,
gosh, I so love the idea of you and me sitting at Creative South behind the table, just having
Just looking
the exact
identical.
Same,
That's funny.
I love
Just
it
get
so
a bald
much.
cap.
You have,
What if
do you
we
have an old pair of glasses?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
do have an old pair of
I just
That's
love it
so
much.
funny.
I wonder if it would be. What if we wait, and the first day of Creative South, I wear a wig and a faux beard
look like-
to look like you, and then
Sure.
day 2 is when we show up and we both look like me, and then day
But it's like-
3 we both show up looking like Lauren.
We both dress like a Lauren.
Mhm.
That's what we should do. You would like that. Because we're going to miss you otherwise. So we're just going to role play as you.
Lauren is shocked.
Look at her. Just full of surprise.
I know she said she was showing up not sober, but wow, she's really just
Ooh.
dead-eyed.
Maybe she has that like fainting goat thing.
She's
we can just like scare back. Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's what happened. Okay, I think the stash should happen. If it doesn't look good, the rest will grow back. But I think it will look good. That's the thing. Like, I hear what you're saying, but I think this is one of those cases where you have to like 100% go for it. And you have to know that if you 100% go for it, it's fixed in like 90 days.
Yeah. For your hair?
Something like that. Yeah, that's all it takes, right? 90 days?
No. No, not to the length that it is right now. Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe yours. Yeah.
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 I don't think it'd take that long. We'll obviously wait for Lauren before we jump into this. That's actually very appropriate that we got the the issue out of the way, because she would have been devastated if.
We have to let her in. She did.
Well,
she's
no,
not logged.
she's not in. No, she's not even in the platform right now.
I am. We don't. See
Okay, so here's the thing. You're not. So I would just close your browser and come back. We can just chalk this up to Restream being problematic.
It's never done this before.
Well, and then also make sure you're in the live room and not the recording room.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
like I think you can see people in both, but like it has different functionality. It's weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's.
But this did work out. I'm glad we're getting this out of the way right now. This is much better. Okay, so we will talk Severance, and then I know that she wants to talk a little bit about traders, but
traders.
I don't want to. I'm gonna say this to you, so I don't
There
disappoint her.
she
But
is.
I hated traders.
Okay,
Hey, Lauren's
finally.
back.
Sorry.
Great. Okay, we did it. We're good. All right, we should start now then.
Yeah, here we go. 3 and 2 and 1 and.
All right.
Welcome to a special episode of the Master of One episodes, where we're just showing up and we decided we're going to talk about Severance.
Yeah,
it
nothing
just
wrong with
ended.
that.
It's
Basically
just
a
ended.
flawless intro. Yeah, that was
I
great.
can't think of any way to have done it better. Yeah, so we're gonna talk Severance season 2, including the finale, and from the beginning we are fully spoilered. So if you've not seen season 2 and you plan on it, or you've not seen the finale and you plan on it, just see you later. Just come back to this later and hear our thoughts. But we're just jumping in where we are head first into this. So season 2.
How much of the season do we need to talk about, though? Like, if someone's watching this and they know what's going on, do we need to get into much of the rest of the season, or like, what are the parts that you see as like, okay, these are critical?
I don't want to have like parameters of like, well, we can't talk about episode 3. You know, that just seems insane.
I'm not.
I feel
I'm
like
not saying
everything
we
should be on the
can't.
table. We can talk about whatever has happened in Severance so far.
I don't think we have to recap anything. I think we just talk
Sure.
about
Yeah.
the things that we want to talk about. I think that's probably the way to
Yeah.
go about it.
I will say Severance, even though it's not doing it, it does a good job at making me feel like there aren't a ton of loose threads. More so this season than last season. But I think, and maybe it's because last season there were just a lot of concepts that were new. But this season, culminating in the finale, I don't feel the need of like, well, in episode 3, this thing was said and we never dealt with that. Like, I just didn't walk away from this season feeling that way. I know those things exist. I know we'll get into a couple of the theories about those things later, but I do kind of appreciate how on topic this season stayed for the most part, given how confusing it all can be.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you, because I feel like there's a lot of things that I still have like questions about that are like and some of things are things that happened in season 1 that like haven't been resolved. Like one of the things that I thought was like an interesting thread that hasn't come back was like when they asked Devin's brother Rickon to like write new books for Lumen. Like, I don't know if that was just making a point of like how much influence they have or whatever, but like it was interesting that like everyone was obsessed with his book in season 1, and then they were like hiring him to write books for Innies or whatever. Like, I kind of thought that was interesting, but that doesn't matter in the end.
We didn't see much of Rickon season 2, which is a bummer. But I don't know that means that we won't get that tied up. I do think I think we'll circle back to that. I did have, I think it was episode 7, I think was my least favorite episode of this season, because
Which
I
one
felt
is
like
that?
none of it mattered. I think it's the episode.
The Miss
if I
Cobell
remember correctly.
episode?
Yes, the Miss Cobell
Okay.
episode I thought was, like, I was ready to just like skip it. Like I was annoyed, and I thought, oh no, this show has, like, I've already lost interest by episode 7, and I thought none of this matters. Why are they giving us this? And then by the end, I do feel like it actually was useful information.
Well, I'm kind of two minds of that episode, where like I did find it like kind of infuriating that like for that episode and the episode before, which was like the Gemma episode, like completely took us out of the main action for 2 episodes in a row, which is like a long time when you're watching shows week to week. That's like, you know, like 3 weeks before you are like back with like the macro
the
data
main
team.
cast,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, so that felt really frustrating to me. And like,
You said micro data. I heard macro daddy, and I'm like, who is the macro daddy team?
Isn't macro data like the name of the department they work in?
Yes,
Am
but
getting
I
it
heard
wrong?
macro daddy.
I'll also confess that I went to the rodeo all day. I've had several drinks, and so like if I mispronounce stuff, that just happens. So anyway, I lost my train of thought.
Pulling you out of the main storyline for 2 episodes, 3 weeks.
Oh yeah,
basically.
okay. So then like the Miss Cobell episode, I do think gives you a lot of information, but like it's very much like show and don't tell. Like you are left to put all the pieces together yourself, and it recontextualizes a lot of like the first season and what she did, and it is very interesting, but it did not feel satisfying at all at the time where you're like, I want to know what's going on with my buddies. Like that was like they left us off like right after the Orpo. It's like, are we ever going to see Irving again? Like I had like it felt like a really frustrating point to be like, and we're just not going to talk about our main guys for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so and I'll let you, Andrew, recalibrate the direction you wanted to take this. But to be clear, that was episode 8.
Episode 8.
I initially, when I saw it, was more disappointed by the runtime of the episode, because right when it seems to be picking up any type of speed, it ends. But what made that episode great for me is that you kind of get the origins of Severance, and I don't just mean with Cobell, but I mean the vats of the chemical and the factories. I mean this town. I don't know how much is exactly said or how much is hinted at, but the idea is that these chemicals were just let out in these factories. People work there, but because they were basically high all the time, they weren't fully aware of what was going on. They could do their job, but they were kind of out of it while they were doing it. And in some ways, because they were high all the time and out of their mind while they were working, it's kind of like an early form of severance. But when these factories get pulled out, what you're left with is basically a town of junkies, which is what we were seeing. It's kind of this wasteland with the old factory in the backdrop, and it's all these junkies. And then now you have Cobell, who saw that. She was also made to work as a child, and she was growing up around that, who invents a procedure. But the procedure, even though it deepens Severance, it also kind of saves people from a lot of the negatives that were being created growing up in that environment. So I
definitely
think that
gave you a more like sympathetic view of like why this was created, because it
Yes.
I definitely felt like through all the first season, I would have never assumed that it had any kind of like actual benefit in mind. Like it felt like they're doing this for like some creepy evil purpose to make like, you know, worker bee slaves or something. Like definitely didn't think it came from a good place.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, sorry for immediately taking us off the rails, but Andrew, which direction did you want to take this discussion?
I think we're just yapping,
I don't think
right?
we have rails. I mean, I think the what you said is how I felt, right? By the end of that episode, then I was like, oh, okay, this wasn't a useless episode. Finding out that she was the
that
one
reveal,
that she was the one who created it, and not Kier, not
like Egan's or whatever.
Kier Egan. Was
very Elon Musk.
So genuinely, there was so much of this season that I felt like it ran too parallel to real events happening in our life right now, that I like too real to feel super good about it. Even the Gwendolyn Christie nonsense with the sheep or the goats or whatever. Like even that, like it just felt everything had just a tinge of reality to it this season. And I don't know if it's a difference between how it was written or how it was executed, or we're just in a different time now than we were with season 1. If I were to go back and rewatch season 1 right now, would I feel like, oh, this all feels all too real right now? But season 2 definitely feels very it just is eerily real to me. Like it just harkens to too much of the real world to feel. It's kind of like Handmaid's
We have
Tale.
fallen further down the capitalist rabbit hole in the last like 3 years since season 1.
Right. It feels a little bit. This season has felt a little bit more like Handmaid's Tale to me.
Yeah, I do think there's. I do think there's a different vibe between this season and season 1. I don't know if you guys feel that.
Totally.
I know there are slightly different writing team and other stuff, but I also feel like the story had to open up quite a lot in order for it to like have a season 2, I think. And so I just think they're asking different questions now.
Yeah, I mean, season 1 was, from my perspective, just about understanding how this process could work and this idea of outies versus innies. It's just learning that, hey,
It's more
this
the setup,
exists, and this is some of the cultural implications of this existing. Whereas season 2, the thing it really honed in on was relationship, and we see that because we see the idea of an outie, kind of falling in love with her husband's innie. We have two innies
love that
who
storyline.
also both meet as outies and have an experience. So you have two innies and two outies. You have an outie that knows that his innie and another innie had a relationship and meets the outie. And so then they're like grappling with what that might mean about them. And then you have, so like it's all
There's
these
a lot of yeah.
permutations of
two innies, but one is deceptively an outie,
Yeah.
having
Yes.
a relationship with an innie unbeknownst to them, and then having
What is
to
it-
flip the script
Sure.
and then reconcile that once they're both.
what
innies
does it mean
together.
if an outie cheats on an outie with an innie? What does it mean if an innie unwittingly cheats on an innie with an outie?
And is it cheating?
Yeah, because it's like
yes.
you
there's a
don't even have
moral-
the memory of doing it, you know?
There's a moral
Like,
conundrum there, right? Like, yeah,
Yes.
there's so much.
but it's an interesting question, and I think that they really stirred up the
Right.
pot in the most interesting way possible for like that love triangle, or I don't know what
Sure.
love geometry it is anymore because there's so many points in this, but
But it shifts the focus from these large scale cultural implications and considerations to much more personal. Like we
Oh,
get
yeah.
to see these people become, or we really get to discuss these people more from the standpoint of being individuals. And then by grappling with it via relationship, what makes someone an individual?
Well,
like
I think
are you
that's-
an individual? The ability to love someone as an innie that's an outie, even though you're a layer of an outie, but does that then make you an individual because that who you love is like a distinct difference? And obviously your agency within that, and the fact that you do
Yeah.
have agency within that. So I did love this focus of the season. And I think this was really necessary for us to really consider this as not just people, but why are you people? At the same time, it did feel different, but not in a bad way from my standpoint.
No, yeah. My only issue with the season where I felt like it was worse than season 1 was the Cobell episode, where I felt like it was dropping off for me, and it's maybe because the episode just before that was the Gemma episode, which though I did feel like the Gemma.
I think those
episode-
are both good episodes, but it's just like I think kind of frustrating order of events,
Sure.
you know, like because it takes us out for such a long time. I have some other problems with this season. My main kind of issue all along, and I think this is quite honestly like they confronted this issue quite a lot in the last episode of like what is everyone trying to do? Because it's like, yeah, if you take down Lumen, all of the innies die. If you don't, though, you're kind of like allowing this kind of weird torture to continue. And like, who knows what they're really like doing with all of this? It seems very like nefarious and not really great. And so it's like, and there's like characters like Mr. Milchick. It's like, what on earth compels him to stay at this job and like put up with like all the stuff that he puts up with, because he doesn't seem happy to deal with this, but like is so devoted to his job that he's like by the end of the season he's ready to like hurt somebody to like keep his job. Basically, it's kind of is the vibe. And so
I
but
do
it's like
think-
but it doesn't like that's
Yeah.
kind of confusing. Like, why is he so bought into this job, like in a way that like it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know what he gets out of this, like, but he's very devoted. Like, they made it make sense why Cobell was that way. He's a character where I don't understand like what makes him stay at this job. Like, because he's
Well,
like a full outie too. Like, I don't think he has an innie.
In fairness, I think all of us have stayed at jobs we didn't like for years past the point of not liking
But
them.
this is like a huge buy-in. Like, your entire lifestyle is different if you work there. Like, this is not just a small, like, I kind of hate my job. Like,
We don't know
he's
how much
doing
he
a
makes.
lot of extra shit.
Okay,
Like,
hold on. We got to separate both these topics because we touched
Yeah.
on two topics. We'll start with milkshake, and then we will come
Yeah.
back. We will come back to this idea of what's the
goal.
greater goal. But starting with this piece of it, I think what's important from my perspective I think he likes the job. I don't think he dislikes the job. I think he dislikes the people above him. It seems increasingly like the parties that go on, these like special events, etc., they're not driven by the Lumen handbook. They're driven by him. It's his desire to create this interest for his managers and his people on his floor.
I think he wants people to like him and respect him.
I think he actually wants to be a good boss. Now,
Yeah, I don't really
he
think
then
he's
needs
a
to
bad
obey
guy.
like the Kier stuff, but I don't think he hates his job. I think that he feels like whether it's the board or whoever, they're getting in the way of him doing a good job. Now, the big kind of irony to it is that Cold Harbor fails under his watch, which is then like that's got to feel like an absolute stab in the heart. Did it actually
fail? That's another question I have. Like,
we'll package it did.
Yeah, we need to get back to that. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I will disagree that he hates his job. I don't think he hates his job.
I don't. It's unclear, but he seems very frustrated with it at many points during the season.
I agree, and to the point where I would say, I think you make good points, Patrick, that I didn't consider before, but I would have said prior to this that by the end of this season, I fully expected him to help them escape.
Me too.
Because of the progression of this season where they were giving him, what is this?
It's going to happen. I feel like season 3 is when we're going to get that, by the way.
But
anyway.
it seems like
season 3, I see.
Because I agree with you.
I thought you were trying to do air quotes, but
I was like,
this
that's
dinosaur
with
finger
alien
was.
version.
But I genuinely thought that was going to happen because, especially when he kind of mouths off to the Kier animatronic.
Oh, that was great.
and you get that kind of weird exchange with the robot, kind of
well,
almost
the
to the point
devour
where you think,
feculence thing, like
devour
literally.
feculence. I the very next day after that episode aired, I saw somebody post they had already made a T-shirt that says "devour feculence" on it.
They did the right thing. They stayed up late that night.
It's great, but
I want it.
Old Lauren would have done that.
And it started. it started with old Lauren. It started with the when they gave him that portrait when he first got the promotion, and they did this like weird
like recanonized
retconning
slap in the
which I think
face,
is
right?
creepy.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yes, genuinely. And I thought, oh, this is the beginning of the end for Milchek. And I think season 1 Milchek I did not like. Season 2 Milchek, by the time we were done, I think he's my favorite character of the show.
I'm very fascinated by Milchek, but I don't like understand him.
I don't either, but I do I actually think, Patrick, you made a really solid point that I agree. I think the parties are his way of genuinely trying to bring levity and trying to bring celebration to what he already knows are these people's pretty like bleak existences. I think they're all him. I think he loves doing it. It certainly wasn't Cobell who was pushing for these things,
and he
right? So like I do think that he's
like,
excited about that, and I do think he wants to be liked, he wants to be respected, but he wants to be liked, and he wants to do a good job, not just because of not for his job's sake. I think he actually cared about the innies, genuinely.
Yeah. He's literally mouthing off to this like representation of Kier or whatever in the final episode. Like
so funny.
How sacrilegious to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that even further pushes that his enjoyment. I mean, I think it even further pushes that his enjoyment comes from trying to be a good boss, or that he actually wants to be one.
And I think they said too, like he started the program where like they can see their spouses or whatever, like where Dylan gets to meet.
I thought that was a trap,
wife, which is,
and it was.
I
a
really
real
did
thing.
too. I got so worried halfway through the season that Dylan was going to turn, and I was like, I can't handle this. I'm going to be so angry if this happens.
Turn what? Like turn bad? What
like turn on the other innies, like
I see.
you know,
he was
like
keeping that information from
in order to protect
well, because like
visits,
they kind of set up in the first season that like he loves the perks, and they gave him like a secret perk that's maybe the best of all the perks that could ever be, and then like so it was like the perfect trap for him, and I was like, this is awful if they do this. Like,
I think too what was so interesting about season 2, we get after everything that happens in season 1, and like I think it's at the end of the first episode, we find out that or maybe it's the second episode, that Lumen listened to the feedback, the criticisms, whatever, and as a result, they took out all the cameras. Like there's no
Which
there's
seems
no
insane.
security
just
stuff.
say.
Like, it's such an interesting swing, given what we know to be true. They can still see what's happening on their screen, but they're no longer.
I was like, they are
surveying
still
them.
watching them though. It's really just like there are less cameras. Like,
Yeah, but still, like you'd think in a scenario like that they would double down on security, but instead what they did was to provide some freedom for the innies. I do think they heard, and maybe this was Milchek's, like maybe he pushed for that, right? Like,
yeah,
I did think it wasn't
funny.
Helly E pushing for that, you know?
I thought it was pretty funny that like this season they almost never spent time just actually working. They were always like trying to figure out some mystery or running around in like other places.
They would have finished that 25th file on episode 1 if they had actually
like. But
been
a lot
working.
of season 1 is them like still working and like, but also discovering these mysteries like while they know that they're being watched and all this. So it was just kind of funny, like the vibe in the second season is like, I don't have to be at my desk. Goodbye.
Okay.
Can we address now the other piece of what you were saying, the goals?
Yeah, sure.
I have my opinion about this if you want me to launch into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
I think it's a quandary. I think that's the idea.
Well, they set up a really good question at the end.
This box has been opened now. So it's very easy to say justice, or not, I don't mean justice, but like the right thing to do is to shut down the program. But at this point,
there are hundreds of,
it
way
could be
more
thousands.
than that.
I mean, we got.
I think it's actually way more than that because they said that there's like branches all over the world. So like,
well, and think about all the people that their entire job is to do like marching band stuff. I mean, what does that hint for how many thousands of people? And not just that, but you have someone like Gemma who, as one person, is what actually has like 25 innies or whatever.
But also like isn't leaving. So like, how many people live there like full time? Like are on this testing floor.
All that to say that on one hand, shut it all down. That's the correct thing to do. Don't create it to start with. But the problem is the box was open. It is created.
Yeah.
And at this point, it is a genocide of sorts to shut it down. So does that mean the correct thing to do is to improve it instead of killing it because the box is open? And I don't know. I don't have an opinion on it. I think it's a really tough question, and I also think
it's like there's not a real answer to this question. Like it's an open question.
Andrew said he knows the answer.
I do know the answer. It's Schrodinger's cat. That's genuinely what it is, right? Like that's how it feels. Like the act of making a decision defines like the morality of it. If you choose to not make a decision, then you are allowing yourself to stay amoral on it, right? The second you make any decision, you're making the wrong one. So you're better off not making a decision. So it's kind of
what did they do to Schrodinger's cat?
You know Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
No, but I feel bad for that. The cat's not around anymore, is it?
We won't know.
We wouldn't
I guess
know.
if you check the box, you'll find out. But so what I would say is trickier about it is, as I was watching this season, I found myself rooting less and less for Audi Mark and more for Innie Mark. But
Innie Mark is way cooler. I mean, so is Innie Helly, so is Innie Dylan, honestly.
I don't know that Innie Irving is better. I think
we don't see Audi Irving enough to make a decision, to be honest.
Well, he makes a decision to walk away from his boy after all that stuff, and I think
my interpretation though is that if he didn't leave, Bert was gonna have to kill him.
What?
Because he was like admitting that he used to be like a goon for Lumen, like.
I didn't take it as that at all.
I think he was like, you got to go.
It did feel like that was a bit of an insinuation, but I'm also not a smart person.
Maybe I'm making a little bit of a leap, but I definitely thought there was like a threat behind that. Like he had to leave.
Or at least like he drove people like to the goons almost. Like he was involved in like helping handle what needed to handle.
So I totally misread that whole thing because I thought it was the way that I read that whole thing was what's his name? It's Irving and Bert. Sorry.
Bert, yeah.
Bert. I thought Bert was Irving. Like was coming to him, and Irving kind of shut him down and left without him. That's how I read that.
Yeah.
which is a very different read than how you guys read it. So
yeah, I mean, I do think there's kind of a point too where it's like I don't really see a scenario where like any of the innies get a happily ever after with the things that they actually want, you know?
No, and going to the latest episode, that's what we see ultimately in the culminating shot. I mean, that shot is a recreation of the shot from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and that's like final shot before they both face their death as well, and that's what we left off on the final like screen of
that
season
still
2
shot
with.
where you could see like the film grain.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Oh,
a
I didn't
complete
know
callback
that.
to Butch
Yeah.
Cassidy. So the point is, they don't get a happy ending, and what they're alluding to is that they're now facing the firing squad, basically, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were they
How
hoping to
long-
have happen?
Yeah, that's we should talk about like I think the end of the episode now, just
Yeah.
jump around a little bit.
Yeah.
But like the decision at the end feels very frustrating in a way
Yes.
because it's like I honestly agree with any Mark's argument 100% and get where he's coming from, but the short-sightedness of this plan just really is painful where it's like,
Yes.
dude, what are you doing? Like this, there's no way this works out for you. There's just no way. And
I
so
think
like
he's trying to
you're-
have his cake and eat it too. Like he's
it
like,
just
I'm
seems
fine.
so
I'll help out.
astronomically impossible that it's like
I will help
you
out.
should have walked out
Audi
the door.
Mark. I'll help out Audi Mark, but then I'm still going to make my own decision and stay.
okay.
I,
Like, let me
yeah,
take
and
a
I
step back,
get the
though.
like poetry of this and everything, and like this is how season 3 happens. If you walked out the door, the show would have ended, and that's how it would have had to be. But it is one of those things where I'm just like, so what is season 3 going to be like? Like they're just like hiding out in the Severed floor, trying to like hold their Audis hostage, basically. Like,
I hope so. But here's the thing: like, if he walked out that door, he died then. He doesn't
Yeah.
get to come
Right.
back. So this idea of like not walking out the door, ultimately, he doesn't have a reason to trust Audi Mark. And if you look at it from the
no, I
perspective
agree,
of
but
who's done more for the other, any Mark has done way more for Audi Mark in terms of that relationship. So he did, even though he didn't commit to, he ultimately gave him what he asked
Yeah.
for, which was seeing her through the severed floor. Well, getting down to the bottom floor and then
Yeah,
seeing her
yeah,
through the
yeah,
severed floor out the door. Whether you have 10 minutes left to live or 1 minute left to live or an hour, you still get that where the other option was you're gone in that second. So it
Yeah,
seems like
it's
it's
just-
maybe worth a shot, even if, again, you're just walking towards all the people that are your demise.
I don't disagree with most of what you said. I think the one part that I would disagree with is that any Mark has done more for Audi Mark. Any Mark only exists because of Audi Mark. So it's like one of those things.
but it's
like,
not fair,
but
like to
a
say
to-
that like he doesn't owe him anything.
So
Total-
you
he's
know?
a slave because of
Yeah.
Audi
Not
Mark?
a-
That's not like
I-
a better thing.
This is the thing. I was like,
didn't
I don't
say
have
he
a
was
clear
slave.
answer in
I'm
what I
just
think is
saying
the right
the
answer.
idea
but-
that one did more for the other, so it warrants him being able to whatever. I'm saying his existence is genuinely only because of Audi Mark's decision.
But I love the distinction that their existence is admittedly bad, like it's shit. However, they've still tried to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes all this a massive quandary, because ultimately
Well, it's like that. Like, I love that line that Helly has where it's like, you gave us half a life and you thought we wouldn't fight for it. Like, that's really,
Yeah.
like, that's it. Like,
because you could argue that Audi Mark really kind of gave any Mark an awful life. Like,
Yeah.
he basically set him up for a really tough time, and he's made the best of it. But I don't know. Here's one of those things. Is it frustrating? Of course it's frustrating, because it's
Yeah.
like Jim and him have been apart for all this time.
mm-hmm.
They finally had the opportunity to fix it, and now they don't, in the sense that he turns away. That, of course, it's frustrating. But man, from a writing standpoint, I feel like it makes so much sense.
No. This is the thing. I was like, I get it, but it's also just like, I was screaming at the TV, like, you idiot. Like,
Same.
I think we all were, yeah.
yeah,
so
it's a really, really well done scene. Just excruciatingly painful.
I thought that Helly was coming around the corner to give him permission, like to say, like, it's
Yeah.
fine, go. I understand. When she didn't do that, I was pissed at her.
And do you think
then
it's
I was
really
pissed at
Helly?
Mark. And then I was
That's
pissed
the
at Mark.
question.
I don't think it's Helly the whole time.
What does that mean? So Mackenzie
So
said
is
that
it
in
her
text
Audi or
thread.
her innie? Because she
Oh.
has the ability to be on the severed floors either. She's proven that.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
so-
she says that really cryptic line of like, I'm not. she said some line in the finale.
Yeah. But I
Like, that wasn't
genuinely,
really
I
me,
don't
or
know
that's-
if
I'm
it's
not
like
really the
back and
whatever.
forth, because there's certain things that I'm like, there's no way Helena said the thing about they gave us half a life and didn't think we'd fight for it. There's no way in hell she would have said that. But I do think at the end, that's Helena, because like they like there's the whole thing where Irving said like Helly was never cruel, and it was the way she like looks at Gemma is like, I got him, and it's like shitty.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's my evidence that at the end it's Helly. But it's so like no one can, like, you're not really supposed to be able to just be like obvious, you can tell, like, but I don't
They
think it's
look
her
the
the
same.
entire time.
No, one
I
of them
just
has
don't
a
think it's
mole.
her the entire
There's a
time
mole,
during
like,
this
right here.
episode. Like,
So
I
can
think
I-
it goes
so-
back and forth.
So let me jump back further into this, further back into this episode. What I think is the best scene pairing of the entire season, maybe of the show, when Mark was arguing with himself through the tapes.
Incredible.
And
Incredible.
the blue overtone lights and the red overtone lights, and just showing the difference between the two, and like the frantic nature as they, like, you start to see how Audi Mark starts to turn more frantic, and any Mark starts to turn more kind of not docile, but more like
Resolved.
Sharp.
demonstrative. Yeah,
Yeah,
more resolved,
yeah.
more like more resolute in his decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you start to see this kind of flip of what they had been up to that point, and that scene was phenomenal. Like,
Amazing.
give him an
That was
Emmy
the
right now
best.
for that scene, because that was
Yeah.
so freaking good.
I will say,
Absolutely incredible.
when Audi Mark says, but that's not how it works, and then Mark goes, okay, so
How does it
how
work?
does it work?
Yeah.
That moment was what an absolute mic drop.
So good.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was one
that
of those "who's the
exchange-
captain now" moments.
Yeah.
I think that exchange, coupled with the quirkiness of the band segment, coupled with the
Yeah.
just the whole entirety of the escape, right,
Mm-hmm.
is one of the reasons I think this was my most satisfying episode of the season.
I
There were
will
other
also
episodes I
throw
enjoyed,
it in
but
a shout out for the scene where Dylan read the letter from his Audi. I loved that scene. That was a great like culmination of that
Point
whole
one.
storyline.
And
So
he was
good.
reading it
Yeah.
in his voice,
It-
and then it
mhm.
transitioned into his voice. But
Yeah.
it was so clearly a different voice,
It's
but
just-
it's the
they're
same
so
voice.
good on
It
this
was
show.
really,
They're
really
really-
smart. Yeah.
I just loved that part, and I thought that was really touching and cute. How he's like, you're like inspiring to me that I can be like that again. Like, I thought that was like a really cool.
You make me
It was
wanna
also
be a
cool to
better
have
man.
that after you're seeing like Mark literally fighting with himself, and then Dylan like become like at peace with the two parts of himself.
yeah. So one more detail I want to point out before I think I'm personally ready to get into some
The Cold
what's
Harbor
going
of
to
it all.
happen next,
Yeah.
maybe. But
We have to talk about Cold Harbor and what happened.
yeah,
And what is
which,
it? and-
which is a failure, but we'll talk about it in just a second. But we see him. The scuffle that ensues. They come down the elevator, and he has the gun that's used to like kill livestock. It like shoots a piston out, right? And this idea of like Audi Mark suddenly coming to just
That
in
was-
time to like. He squeezes the trigger, kills this guy.
No, I
right?
think it's literally just like he flinches
think it's
when
a muscle
when
shot.
he
Yeah,
like goes
yeah.
through the
I
severance
agree.
thing, and like that, and he killed him on accident.
But the
kind of.
reality is,
Yeah.
from his perspective, he comes to just in time to kill this guy.
Yeah.
He does not know what he's holding, right? So, like, we know
Oh
it's
yeah, and
this,
he doesn't
like,
even
a
know who that
piston
guy
gun.
is. I just realized
He does
that.
not know the situation, and yet he goes down this floor looking for Gemma, and that nurse gets in his way. And I've only seen the episode once, so maybe I'm wrong. But if I remember correctly, he just starts like pulling the trigger on her, like
It's the
he's
one
full
time
on
you-
John Wick, ready
Yeah.
to end her life. He doesn't understand that what he's holding is not a gun, and he
That's
just starts
interesting.
going for it. And
didn't know.
I
that
think it's a
part
little
to
more
me-
timid than that. Like he's just pointing it at her and yelling. And
I'm pretty
it's
sure he
way
starts
more
like
like
squeezing.
clumsy.
I need to watch it again.
I love
but
that they're both
just-
like just yelling at each other until she runs away. Like that was
But in
hilarious.
that moment, his response wasn't horror. I mean,
Yeah.
it might have been on some level, but his response was, "This is happening, and the fact that you've like kept these people in this position, like you're not human to me." So there
Yeah.
was no remorse for the situation. It's Gemma's getting out. Okay, so that leads us to Cold Harbor. So
Wink.
I'll
Yeah.
real quick say my part.
Yeah.
Why I think it's a failure. I think it's a failure because she didn't finish disassembling the crib, which is really confusing people listening. But imagine this scenario: she does not know who Mark is. A stranger walks in, and not just a stranger, someone who looks threatening. They're covered in blood. They have an item in their hand. The person on the speaker, who you do know, is telling you this person is dangerous. This person is a threat. Don't talk to this person. And yet, she chooses that person over everything else. That if this was truly a stranger, every part of your body would be yelling, stay away from this person. This situation is dangerous.
know,
and
though.
that, to me, means that Cold Harbor was not a success because some part of her knew this person is a safe person and I should go with this person. Now,
I'm really
as far
not
as
sure.
the physical act, she never finished taking apart the crib. And then in terms of other people's reaction, we also see like Kira and all these people yelling like, whatever. They're clearly upset. They're not celebrating that something was finished. So from my standpoint, I believe Cold Harbor was ultimately a failure, at least in terms of what we anticipate Cold Harbor to be. Yeah.
I really don't know that like it's as strange though that she chooses to go with Mark even if he is a stranger, because like in the beginning of the whole show, like Helly wakes up and it's her first time there and she's like, am I food? What is this place? Like, it's a scary situation where you're in a white room with like just a crib and a random voice is speaking to you. And this is a new Innie personality. It's not like the same one that she knows she's been going into other rooms with. So this is like a fresh start in this room. And there's just an omniscient voice that says, take apart this crib. It's the only choice you kind of have. And then someone comes in and is like, we can leave. Like, I don't know if it's as crazy that she decides to leave. I know that you're probably supposed to understand that, but like that, like she left because it's him. But like, I don't know. Like, it's still just such a weird scenario that I can't rule out that like you would leave.
Yeah, I think I agree with that because we see how difficult acclimation is when you're just now, like when you're a fresh Innie. The question that I would have is how much of that stuff actually transpires for, like, how much do they manipulate like their current brain state, kind of like Mickey 17, right?
Yeah.
So like how much of that when we're assuming that the Innies that her Innie status works just like the other Innie status, but it might not be that way at all. They may be manipulating what her memories are prior to that moment, so they may
totally
be implanting her with the
right amount of
and trust.
information.
Right?
Yeah.
But that being said, it is. That being said, I do think I think the story makes sense to me that she recognizes kind of deep underneath, buried way underneath that. She knows
that
him Mark is her safe place.
But that's the point. That it's like completely cuts off this like most horrible emotion.
Yeah.
And because the idea is that this person that
like this is one of your worst memories
severed.
And
they're fully transcend all of their original person. They're wholly their own being. And the fact that she ultimately went with her spouse's voice to me yells that they did not achieve the goal.
I also this is a little bit of a tangent, but like along the same lines, like we know that she was supposed to like die as part of the like completion of this, which I don't understand like why she would have to die necessarily like at all. But like that's clearly like they've said that pretty blatantly that like if that was part of it. What'd you say, Andrew?
I think just to get rid of the evidence. Like she is she's living proof that they frauded and they manipulated captured and I think she is evidence of them.
Like do you guys have like any suspicion that she volunteered for this? Because like
None.
I did after her episode where it's like
she
had all these fertility issues. She wants like a cure basically, and maybe that's what they promise, you know. And so like she has obviously no clue what this would be. Like Mark volunteered to be to have an Innie too, and like you just think it's going to be a regular Innie experience. It's not.
Maybe
or did she die in this car crash and then like they took her body and did something
like a RoboCop situation?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about like how she got there in the first
Well,
place.
They were clear that the car wreck thing that was a lie. Maybe she signed up for it. Sure, maybe. But the other
Yeah.
thing they were clear about at the birthing cabin is that when you go to that floor, you are your Audi when you're in the hallway, because they said, Mark, you'll be back to your Audi. So
Yeah.
therefore, you have Audi Gemma assaulting someone to try to escape, and they pull her back in. That's clearly not legal, and that's clearly outside the bounds of
Yeah,
saying,
okay,
"Hey, I'd
yeah,
like to
yeah,
be
yeah.
there."
What
you know?
what point of order, real quick?
But I'm
I do
just
think
curious.
I do think that's something that we may have missed in this discussion that I was remembering as we were talking. When he comes in, she recognizes him as Mark S. before she recognizes him as her husband. So her innie does.
You mean in the
recognize him.
elevator when she says,
Miss Casey?
yeah, they're
remembers him.
recognizing each other as their
Right.
like innies. Yeah.
Well,
So
when
that-
they
so that
pass
infor-
the threshold where they become innies again, that happens.
Yeah,
in the
like that's on
elevator.
the severed floor. They're their
I know,
innies.
but what
Yeah.
my point is that knowledge is still baked into her. Is my point. Like it's
into
not-
that innie, yes, yeah, completely.
Yeah.
But like
It's-
that innie
it's so
is not the
confusing,
innie in the Cold Harbor room.
Yeah,
every
that was
room
a-
Yeah,
is
that's
a
right.
different.
Because she
innie.
has
Yes. Yeah,
up
yeah,
to
you're right.
26 innies, you know, if like
Yeah.
their severed floor is a separate one.
Can
And-
we
and
can
so
all
that-
agree though that them having her disassemble the crib is about the most like inhumane thing they could possibly do.
Oh
right?
yeah,
we
like in
agree.
her
That's the
clothes,
point.
her own clothes, like with the music. Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
very messed up. The whole thing is messed up. That's why it's like you kind of like want Lumen to be shut down because like clearly what they're doing is so messed up, but you don't want all the innies to die because they're all the best characters.
Well, but they're also, again, it comes to the argument of what makes
I'm
someone
just-
a person or not a person.
I know, I was
but-
just being funny that they're the best characters.
they exist within the Audis all along. I actually, I don't know if this is a hot take or an unpopular opinion or I don't know what it is, but I'd be okay if all the innies went away. Like and just see like
Well,
I'd
it's
like
like
to
if
see them
it's-
all kind of reintegrate,
Integrate.
even if
But
it's
I do-
naturally.
I do have a lot of questions. I think it was very smart of Annie Mark to start asking about this because we started reintegration on episode 3 and it really has not borne much fruit all the way through the season. Like there are just flashes sometimes. Like they do not really seem like they're melded. We don't know what it means when they're going to be together. And like I think it was a good question. It's I've only been around for 2 years. You've been around for 40. What happens? You know, like I think those are all good questions.
Well, and there is a piece of it too where I understand that they both kind of own the body, so from that standpoint, one could go or the other could go. But at the same time, it does belong more to Audi Mark than any Mark, and this is the same for all of them. So if Lumen is
Well-
gone, it's not like there's a pile of bodies laying
I was
there.
like, it's very
It's just a
complicated.
series of consciousness that no longer exist.
Well, like another thing that I feel like they're definitely setting up for next season is that like Helly and Helena had sex with Mark. One of them got pregnant. I'm sure of this, just because the question of then whose baby is it is too interesting. Like, and it would be probably better if like Audi, Mark, and Helena also had.
It
sex,
would be
just to make it the
Helene's
most
baby.
complicated. Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, like
so
if you give birth, are you the mother? Because that other lady was severed when she had the baby. You know, like these
so
are
this brings
fun
us to like the
questions.
theory section.
yeah.
One of the theories, so when they're at the birthing cabin, Audi Mark refers to Hella as Helene, I believe is the word that he uses. It's this like combined term. We also know that the father makes a comment that, you know, outer Helly doesn't have the fire inside of her, but any Helly does. That's what he alludes to.
Yeah.
And so
creepy.
that idea and then we also get the comment of, but you know, like Helly will never agree to reintegrate. So when we combine these things together, the hybrid name plus the father wanting the innie plus this kind of, oh, that'll never happen, it sets up the belief that in season 3 we could see the reintegration of both Helly and Mark. Now maybe it's forced in order to get someone to kind of take over the Lumen Empire. Maybe it's not seen as a way of like us of doing some type of good, but it's more seen as a way of almost like killing the outie Helly with this belief that the inner fire will like take control.
Yeah, what if she she starts the they drill a hole into Helly's head, like, or when she's in charge,
But maybe full on reintegration is what we're gonna get. I'm not suggesting that for all innies, but specifically
again,
for
what
these
does it mean to be reintegrated?
I think you just see flashes of other people.
Yeah, it's just a good. These are all good, fun
Watch other
questions.
people flash. Yeah. I am excited for season 3. I ended season 2 frustrated with Mark and frustrated with Helly. I didn't consider it not being Helly in the same way that you guys kind of described. So I need to kind of like sit on that and process.
I'm gonna
that
go
a
back
little
and
bit
forth
just,
on this the entire time because there's moments where I know that it had to be Helly and others where I'm like positive that it was Helena, but it doesn't make sense that they would be switching back and forth and back and forth. So
yeah,
I'm like, it has to be one or the other.
Yeah. Poor Gemma though. Like,
yeah,
God,
what a terrible life.
Feel for Gemma.
I hope she gets to leave. Like, what? Like, she doesn't have a car or anything, so I hope she gets out of there.
She's just in the stairwell. Like,
I know, like, just run outside and
There's
leave.
so-
but
there's
then,
so
like,
much.
it seems like that place is kind of far away, and so it's just like, oh my god, please don't get her sucked back in.
It's like
That
the
would be
ride at the
worst.
Haunted Mansion. Like, you think you're going in an elevator, but you're getting like it like takes you over to that warehouse or whatever.
I mean, you've done a very poor job of describing that, but we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, this, maybe the stairwell is really far away from like the reception. That's all I'm saying.
I think it probably
Reception's beside the carriage.
Yeah, hopefully it just goes to like a back exit and she can run away. And Devin's waiting to drive her off.
Okay,
But-
did you like this
Like-
season better than last season? I know we said they're
No.
different. I know that. So you're a full on no.
I mean, I think they're both very good, but I liked the first season more.
I think I would have said that prior to the finale. The finale made the season for me.
I do agree that the
genuinely
finale
that
changed the season.
scene between Marks, I think is the best set of scenes in the entire series. I think I think hands down that's the best depiction of that. It was kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing, and how they kind of bounce back and forth.
Yeah, that was incredible.
The cinematography in that helped with the storytelling, but then also the acting. So like I think that pushed it to where it's just over season 1. But prior to the finale, I would have said season 1 had it.
Yeah, season 1 was a little bit eerier to me.
Yeah.
Sans all the stuff with the goats, or sheep or whatever. Season 1 was
They're
eerier,
goats.
and again, I did feel like season 1. I walked away from every episode a bit more like when I watched Lost the first time. Like, what? The
More questions
hell
than
did I
answers.
just? And so I didn't get that from season 2. Season 2 felt a little bit more direct, which I know I said at the beginning. That said, I'll just agree with what you said, Andrew, in terms of I wasn't sure how I felt. I was building in terms of like, I didn't necessarily like the first couple episodes and it was like coming in my favor or whatever. I so enjoyed the finale. I
do think the finale was like really incredible. I think overall I liked season 1 just a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
They're both solid. Like we're getting
This is
a
a
season
great
3.
show.
Like definitively they announced that they were getting a season 3. So like,
yeah, I
that's-
really wish I knew that before I watched the episode, and I really wish I didn't know that because like it really could have ended when if he had left, like, and that would have been insane. Like it would have been a good ending.
I don't think I knew we were getting a season 3 before I saw the finale.
If you had watched it on a release day, I don't know that you knew that.
Okay,
But
yeah,
if you waited a couple days,
I saw it
think
like around 9:00 on Friday, and I knew that.
Oh, okay. They might have announced it the day of the finale.
I
Honestly.
hadn't seen the news prior to.
Can I throw one really silly TikTok joke that I saw out
Yes.
just before we end this up?
2 rabbis walk into a bar.
It was like the perspective of like one of the guys that's in the marching band, and they were making all these jokes, and at the end they were like, "Do you think our Audis know how to play these musical instruments?"
So okay, hang on. We don't need to go on a tangent.
I
but
just think that was hilarious.
I do want to say that you brought this up a minute ago, Patrick, or you guys were discussing this a minute ago. I don't know, just like how Milchek and Cobell, like I don't know that those people are Audis or that those people are innies. They could just be Lumen employees. They don't.
I
have
don't
to
they
be-
are
understand
Audis.
how that works. Yeah.
I don't think they're any. I agree with you. I think that they are
they're
themselves.
just people who are employed by Lumen. I think.
No,
only-
I think they're innies.
Why?
Because Helly says it like it went like she recruits them by saying we'll die if Milchik gets out, like meaning her and all the innies.
Right, but she wasn't talking about the people she didn't say you'll die. She said we will die.
I think she meant we. That's why they help. That's my interpretation.
I don't know that. I think
I believe that they are all innies, but like I have many
Drummond
questions about it. Like,
do you think there's an innie Drummond?
no, but he's
Okay.
on the board.
But that's the point. Like, I think that Cobell also does, because they all interact with each other outside and inside the exact same way. There's no difference in how they talk to each other, communicate. There's no difference in
That's
naming.
why
like,
they're the same.
They
the whole
don't tell
time.
us this. So
Yeah.
you could be absolutely right, Mackenzie. You could be absolutely right, Lauren. But we also, I think there's as
No,
much.
no, no. It's
evidence
open
that
to
we could be-
interpretation, 100%.
Yeah,
That's just, but I do believe that they're all like we're meant to
I
think
think
that they're.
Cobell
This is-
got a pass because she invented it.
Yes,
And
I think
we
most
don't
of the
know
upper
origins of
management
Milton.
isn't severed.
but also
Right.
think about you as a person, just you as the Lauren that's there. If you're in a room with somebody who's saying, "I'm going to die if you don't help me," do you have to be like them?
No,
to
I
want to help
do
them?
understand. I do understand.
so
But my interpretation was she recruited them because they are also innies.
You
They agreed to
you
help.
want there to be an army of innies. That's what you.
I
want.
do. I mean, that's what makes sense of how season 3 continues. If it's literally just Mark and Helly versus Lumen, they don't win.
Well,
Which
it
could be
just
an
doesn't
interesting
seem.
season.
It
They just
doesn't
they just
seem-
run around in the maze like.
Well, it doesn't seem realistic to me that Milchek gets sent to explain what happened to all these Audis if Milchek himself was not also an Audi in both scenarios. Because then how does Audi Milchek know what any Milchek knows? I think Milchek's an Audi. I think Cobell's an Audi because Cobell invented it. It doesn't make sense that she would have a severed version in that case.
I would
but
believe that she has a chip, but it might not be on. You know what I mean?
she might have more
accurate.
control of it, like Kelly. In terms of season 3, I do think that. Me personally, that well, let me take a step back and say one thing. I don't trust writers. When I heard that, like for Breaking Bad, that they would film scenes before they even knew how they connected. They just thought, that seems cool. Let's just film that, and then we'll figure it out later. And then there is something also to be said for purposely writing yourself into a box. This idea of like you can solve things and then later like get from point A to point B if you know that they have the right impact. All that to say, I don't think everything we've said is necessarily like actually important. And I don't expect writers to close every loop. I think they personally leave themselves, purposely leave themselves out, etc. All that to say, I do actually believe that season 3 will revolve around this idea of you don't have the fire in you, but your innie does. And I think that is the thing that's going to propel the story forward, because otherwise I think they run down that hallway and their chips get shut down and then they just both get evicted from the building or disappeared.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that's the actual line that keeps season 3 going.
Okay.
It's gonna be fun.
However it shakes out for you, whatever your thoughts and feelings are about this season, we'd love to hear them. Hop over into Slack and we can continue the conversation in there. But otherwise, we just have to wait until season 3 to find out some of the answers to these things. Overall rating, Lauren, out of 10, what would you say this season was?
Let's go 9.5.
Wow. Okay, Patrick.
9.
Yeah, I would say 9. So that's great. So with this,
Yeah.
you get a roaring endorsement from every member of the podcast crew. So
was a very
with that
fun
being
season.
said, we are gonna hop out of this this little impromptu episode, and we're just gonna have to talk about Trader Season finale.
Yeah, we'll do it on
different
next
time.
week. Yeah.
But
say-
we will catch you next Monday night live, and then Wednesday as every episode drops. So until then, I'm Andrew.
I'm Lauren.
I'm Patrick.
Hey, have a great night, everybody.
Adios.
Bye.
No one made a Lumen reference.
I was trying to think of one, but I couldn't think of one quick enough. Please enjoy each episode equally.
What's your favorite GIF from this season? Mine's got to be milkshake.
Oh,
Milkshake
running
laying
out
down
of the
thing and
room.
just running out of the room.
that was so
really
funny.
funny.
It's also like the second his fingers are not touching the paper, he's running. Like
He was just so excited to
funny.
get to the celebration. I think
Dude,
he
he's been
practiced
practicing
it
for
all night.
months.
The waffle party, like that. How crazy was that animatronic thing though? That was genuinely very creepy.
Oh, so
Genuinely.
creepy. I love when Milchick like picked it up and like moves it to the back of the room. That was really funny.
When he sasses off to it, I genuinely didn't know it was gonna happen. I'm like,
I mean, I do like we mentioned it, but I feel like we're setting up for Milchick to like join the team.
he's gonna be a hero. He's gonna be a hero.
Yeah.
in season 2.
I think so.
He's gonna have to be.
He's a great character.
As like in the vein of Gwendolyn Christie, who she came in.
She
and
lived
saved
to
she
be
was
Brienne of Tarth
basically
yet again.
yes.
Yeah.
She Brienne of Tarth lived again. So it was fantastic.
We were like, get him. in our living
Same. Awesome. All
I hate
right.
Drummond.
Well, we're gonna get out of here, and I'll
All
see
right.
you guys sooner rather than later.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.